Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. Welcome back to the channel to all our existing subscribers and new subscribers. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today. This show is being recorded for April 3rd, 2022. And as always, a quick reminder, these shows are for entertainment purposes only. So all the information I share with you comes directly through my guides and angels, extended spiritual counsel, ETs, and famous people from history. So for entertainment purposes only. Real quickly, we've been running a contest. Every time we reach a new level of 1,000 subscribers, I give away a free half-hour session with myself. We just crossed over 22,000 subscribers. And the winner of the free half-hour session with myself is Mary Moroni. And that last name is spelled M-O-R-O-N-Y. So congratulations, Mary. All you need to do is just contact our offices, info@sterlingpsychicmedium.com. Let my team know you're the winner, and we'll get you all scheduled very, very quickly. So congratulations. These shows are composed of questions that we receive on our community board. Every Monday, we put a request for questions. And then all the show's questions are garnered from that week's questions, if you will. And we try not to repeat questions and always place timestamps in these shows after they're posted, just so you can go back and review content or double check some of the answers to some of the questions. So thanks for all the wonderful support to everybody that spent the time to submit questions. They're very thoughtful, very insightful every week, and we really enjoy them. So thank you very much. So with no further ado, what I thought we'd do is, I think right now we have 52 questions in a countdown. And a quick reminder as we get started, just remember to like, subscribe, share these shows, hit the notification bell. All those things really help the back end algorithms with YouTube. And the best of all, they don't cost anything. It's all free. So thanks for doing that. So let's get started with today's show. Question number 15. From the other side, does Secretary of State Madeleine Albright have a message for us? She does. Very concerned about the state of Putin's health and very concerned about the way world leaders are responding to him right now. But she's assuring us that President Biden has a good plan in place and doing an excellent job of rallying the troops, so to speak, or NATO behind it. She's also indicating that she left behind, I'm going to call it a dossier or some sort of a document on how to handle Putin from her years of working with several presidents. So there's a document I'm sure that the President Biden's already aware of, but she's congratulating President Biden for doing a successful and a great job so far, and wants us to be doubly clear on everything that we do with Russia, that we have to almost second guess everything that we see, because not everything looks the way it appears. And I'm sure that has also something to do with his health. And this is a separate issue, but I know in the past my guides had mentioned that Putin is dealing with colon cancer. So I think more of that's coming out here in the press. So great spending some time to talk with Madeleine Albright. 51. I am so sad about the passing of Taylor Hawkins, drummer for the Foo Fighters, last Friday. Will Dave Grohl continue with the Foo Fighters or other musical projects after the loss of another very close friend and bandmate? Yes, he will. He will. And this is like the second major loss, because it was Kurt Cobain. That was the front man for Nirvana. I think it was 1994 when he passed, something of that nature. But yes, Dave will move on. And Taylor Hawkins is in a great place right now. I think at another show, we'll spend some time talking with him. But it's also, I'm picking up here that Dave, suspected for a long time there were some difficulties going on with Taylor, but, hard to intercede. So I think the nature of the question was, will Dave Grohl continue with the Foo Fighters? He will. So absolutely. 50. Sterling, will the January 6th committee ever find the missing 7 hours of phone calls by 45? Yes, they will in a sense. They're going to put together what I'm going to call a patchwork quilt of a lot of different calls and call records. Now, it looks to me like there were a lot of different types of phones being used, what they call burner phones and phones from other White House aides. So all this information will be put together in a patchwork quilt, but enough to paint the picture to reconstruct who was talking with the White House and 45 during that 7 hour gap. Absolutely. So my guy just reminded me it's kind of not just a patchwork quilt, but a lot of bi-directional analysis. So either having some White House aides records or somebody in Congress's records that then point back to the White House. So they'll figure it all out. 49 in the countdown. As we age and get closer to our passing, do we start remembering the details of all the mistakes we've made in our lives? Is this our guides preparing us for our life's review after passing? Well, it's more a completion, if you will. So the information that comes forward, like towards the end of life, is more an understanding of completion and all the things you learned and assessing. And in some respects, it does help you when you cross over because it's almost like an advanced head start on doing what I'll call blocking and tackling of looking at your life and all the things you went through and what you meant to other people. So yes, I mean, in some sense, this is correct, this assessment here. 48. My question is, what does your team say about the DOJ's progress on the January 6th insurrection at this point? Will we see justice served? Yes, they're building solid evidence across thousands of people here, thousands of people. And when it's time, all this will come to light. And it kind of reminds me of the saying here, my guys are kind of kidding around, but there was, an old saying is that we serve no wine before it's time. So when the time is right, this will all be released, but they're going through thousands of dossiers and records and individuals. So it's all gonna come to bear in public. It will. 47. Are there humans incarnated who are from higher dimensions, living now, and why are they here? Well, yes. I mean, there are a lot of advanced light workers here on the planet right now, helping the Earth heal over the next 3-decade period. That's very true. And so the reason for them being here is to help the Earth, help planet, help people. And yes, there are advanced, and there are many advanced light workers here right now. Do your guides see Madison Cawthorn having a successful political career? And this is question 46. Well, he's causing a lot of chaos among the Republicans and the GOP. So what it looks like to me, what they're telling me here is there'll be a transition of Madison out during the next cycle. So for him, it looks like he's up for a re-election in 2022 here this year, midterms, and then he'll be out. So he'll be out officially like in 2023. So it looks like he'll be replaced based on all the chaos. 45. When will the USA write laws that hold government officials to a higher standard than the people they were appointed or elected to serve? Well, this is going to take a number of years here. My guys are just telling me that it might be closer to 6 to 8 years here before more consequential laws get placed on the books that rapidly indict and convict lawmakers. So right now, for some reason, there's a bit of sandbagging, if you will. There's votes and things that have to go on to people that have been involved in criminal activity. But I'm seeing in the next now 6 to 8 years here, they're telling me there's going to be laws on the books that will accelerate indictment and prosecution. So that'll happen then. 44. Is our Justice Department compromised? And then thinking, is our Justice Department compromised? Yes, in a sense, there's a lot of individuals that have been on the take, for entertainment purposes only. And because of that, when you take money from sources that you shouldn't have, or mortgages get paid off, magically, that now you're beholden to people you shouldn't be beholden to, and that compromises areas of government. So there's going to be a weeding out process here over the next number of years. but that will happen. But yes, there are people in the Justice Department that are compromised. 43. Will there ever be a time when a world leader will be removed from their position if they are a danger to people or the planet? Yes, this is going to take, more than a decade. Maybe it's another 1 to 2 decades here, but they're also telling me it'll be in conjunction with help from ETs. So ETs, first off, stopping nuclear threats and stopping, acts of, massive violence to humanity. And then that coupled with laws on the books are going to help remove people in power worldwide. So it's almost like the ETs create a backstop, if you will, so that not only do they stop, let's say, weapons of mass destruction, but then they assist in helping to remove people quickly from other rogue nations or major nations trying to cause destruction. So it's going to happen, but 1 to 2 decades here before we really see that meaningful happen in a meaningful way. 42, can a house have energy of its own? I often feel like mine does, and that it wanted my husband and I to live in it. Yes, everything on the planet has energy, houses, buildings, locations, cars. I'm not saying they have spirit, but they have certainly a spiritual essence and an energy that you can feel. And you certainly can get synchronous with that energy, and it can certainly be welcome, make you feel good. So everything on the planet has some form of energy associated with it, and certainly homes do, and they can be very welcoming. So yes. 41, will Ukraine have to give up any of its territory to Russia? Yes, and I say this with a qualification here. It looks like the contested region in the East will still end up being contested and have to coexist with Russia by the time this is all over. So I guess there's going to be some semblance of some region being given up, but it's really in the East, and kind of a continuation of the lot of long battles that were going on in that area. So yes, they'll have to coexist with Russia. 40, do animals like wild animals, farm animals, zoo animals, and domestic animals have soul contracts when they incarnate or reincarnate? If so, are they aware of how they will be treated or mistreated? Yes, all animals have soul contracts. You've probably heard me say before, animals are from the angelic realm. They come down with unconditional love. They come down to teach us lessons. And yes, they have a meaningful soul contract to fulfill, even if it sometimes involves what they call mistreatment. And the reason for that is because they're here as an instructional way to teach us lessons. Sometimes that mistreatment is a lesson for those that are doing the mistreating, as well as those surrounding the animal or those meant to save animals. So, everybody's life path is interconnected, including those of animals and their soul contracts. So yes, that's true. 39 in the countdown. If aliens are working with scientists, why haven't they explained what dark matter is and how to find it, or how to generate pollution-free power? Well, the answer is they already have. They've already described how to find dark matter and what dark matter is, how to locate it in the universe. And they've also offered up what's called pollution-free green energy technology. But the problem is that right now with humankind, a lot of businesses, companies are for profit. So it's that profit motive that's preventing full widespread deployment of these technologies. So the answer is ETs, aliens have already shared a lot of this technology. It will be adopted as we move towards the desire and the requirement to have more green energy, green technology. A lot of what's been shared by the ETs will be implemented. Okay, number 38 in our countdown. In 1980, 5 granite pillars were erected in Elbert County, Georgia, and are known as the Georgia Guidestones. 4 of the pillars are aligned to the cardinal directions and are centered around a central pillar. 10 guidelines are inscribed on each pillar and are written in 8 modern languages. The first inscription says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. It seems as though the guidelines were written for a post-apocalyptic global event. There are many conspiracies about them, including a new world order. What do your guides have to say about the messages on the Georgia guidestones? They're telling me they were created by people, created by individuals. They purport to be some sort of an insight into catastrophic event or a new world order, but they aren't. So they're not an accurate depiction of the future, but somebody is kind of a humankind, a man-made artifacts here. Somebody, I'm sure they were well-meaning or well-intentioned, and it was probably great expense, but it does not look like it has an accurate representation of what's really going on in terms of the life path of Earth or the universe. So I have to say this is more of a man-made artifact and not accurate with reality. 37. We all have guides, guardian angels, archangels, galactic beings, saints, Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, Mother Mary watching over us, helping and guiding us. Are humans that bad that it takes a huge team to get us through life? Well, let me put this in perspective. Everybody does not have all of those entities guiding them. So we're all born with birth angels. Birth angels stay with you for life. They keep you on the planet. We also all have a collection of what I call working spiritual guides that have different functions, different specialties. Now, everyone is capable of calling in archangels, saints, ascended masters. Certainly call them in for help. But I guess I wanted to put that in alignment first, is that, not all of these entities or spiritual entities are around or guiding everybody all the time. Now, I guess the question was, do we need all these entities to help us? Well, we're all down here in a school. This is every day we're on Earth, we're in a school, and all those entities are here to help us learn those lessons and help move through life more successfully and in much more loving ways. So in that sense, they're all required, but they're not all around us all the time. And they're certainly always there when we need them. So hopefully that helps. 36. Sterling, you often look to your right every time after you read out a question. What do you look at or see? Well, the way my gift works, I see a cinematic movie along with hearing and feeling. And so, clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, not necessarily claircognizant, which is kind of that real feeling, if you will. But when I look up, I'm actually seeing either a cinematic movie or individuals I'm speaking with, whoever that is in the other realm. And so that just helps to break away from, let's say, the show we're recording here, and gives me a chance to see it visually. So that's what that's all about. And everybody's gift works differently. And so you'll find out that, every psychic medium that you deal with may have different techniques or how they view the information. But that's usually what I'm doing. I'm looking at a cinematic movie or the individuals in front of me. 35. A few years back on November 1st, I was walking on the beach in Maine on an unusually warm 60-degree day with a friend. My friend left for a few minutes, and I saw ahead an older man wearing a pea coat who looked like he could have been a sea captain from another century. There was a little girl with him, about 7 years old, wearing a two-piece bathing suit and carrying a pail. It seemed really odd that they were dressed so differently. Can you shed any light on this experience for me? Yeah, I mean, what they're telling me, this appears to be, you saw two apparitions. So the sea captain, the little girl. The little girl, unfortunately, it looks to me like she may have perished by drowning around that seashore. And so the sea captain was actually one of her guides, one of her angels, giving her experience kind of on the beach there, kind of revisiting the beach. So it looks like you saw a spiritual apparition, and it was a guided angel along with a little girl that unfortunately looks like she may have died from drowning. 34. Recent research has shown that microplastics are being found in our blood. What are the long-term effects from microplastics in our bodies? How do we clean this up? Well, let me put it this way. In terms of the cleanup in our systems, That's not going to happen for another decade, but that's going to come about through some gene editing technology and some extraterrestrial technology that's going to help humankind with their health. The long-term effects of plastics is that they do make it into our blood. So in large enough quantity and spanning a number of years, they do enter into our bloodstream and can cause problems in circulation and blood feeds all over our body. So yeah, plastics aren't good, but I mean, the good news is that they're telling me the effects only take place through, massive quantities of ingestion of plastics over a very long period of time, like years and years and years. So there's good help coming along the way, and those are kind of generally the effects they're telling me. 33, will or has Newsmax taken the front runner role of dramatized news from Fox? Yes, they have. And this will be the case for the next 1 to 2 years as Fox, and this is for entertainment purposes only relaunches their strategy. So it looks like Newsmax is really going to start to be the front runner in terms of sensationalized news. And then Fox will kind of get relaunched in that same 1 to 2 year period and then come back around again. So, I guess in some respects, we have to call that some of drinking the Kool-Aid, if you will. 32, why would any soul wish to enter a life that starts or stops at stillbirth or has a drug-addicted baby or abused child? I see so much pain and poverty and suffering. What kind of lives would these be for a soul to enter or choose to experience? Is it like a higher challenge for stronger souls? Yes, in some respects it is. Remember that every soul that comes down, and even if they come down for a moment, which is in a stillbirth or a miscarriage, that these soul experiences are life lessons, not just for the soul coming down, but for the lives they impact. Remember, all of our lives, our life paths, our blueprints are interconnected. We all learn from each other. So that is why you can't look at any one life situation in isolation, because every life affects every other life. It's almost like if you throw a stone in the middle of a pond, and you look at all the waves and the rings that go outward. So uniquely, if you look at a life path and say, why would that soul want to be a stillbirth or some other type of traumatic event in early childhood, it's all about their life lesson as well as the lives they affect. So I hope that helps. Remember, by the way, my guides are reminding me that every stillbirth or, every very early, they always go right back to the family. So, for example, if you have grandfathers or grandmothers on their side, you have mothers, fathers, the children go right back to the family. Because a lot of times when I read people, I see the children waving at the person that I'm reading, and that's usually how it all comes up. Hopefully that's helpful. 30, when we connect with our angels and guides, is it common to feel lightheaded or even a little nauseous afterward? Yes, it is. And the reason is that if you're really doing this kind of work, it zaps energy. It takes a lot of energy to really be clear, concise, and communicate with all different types of entities for all of us. And so, yes, it does sap energy. And certainly if you're not hydrated well or up on electrolytes or things like that, you can feel dizzy. And I've said before that if you do this kind of work, in whatever level you do it, we're all capable of doing it. We're all born psychic mediums. But if you do any of this kind of work at all, it does zap a lot of your energy. So you have to get in practice. It's almost like an athlete. The more you do it, stronger and the better you get. You build up endurance. 29. Did you physically pick up on 9/11 before all that happened? Yes, that's an interesting question because my wife and I have talked about this before. For years, at least 2 years before 9/11 happened, I had many reoccurring dreams of jet airliners crashing on the ground, crashing into buildings, had a lot of crashing airline dreams. And at that time, my wife and I were trying to figure it out and say, why would there be so many, I wasn't sure whether the universe was trying to tap in and warn me. Now, just to tell you that a lot of people that do spiritual work and psychic mediumship work had a very similar experience where they were forewarned or saw planes crashing in the building. So, yes, the answer is I did get that information. Hard. It was very hard at the time to know what to do with it, but I did get that information. I did. 28. Many of my friends are now seeing all or most of their student loans forgiven. Just last week, someone had over 25,000 forgiven. Although this is great for them, what about those of us that sacrifice and save every penny to pay down our student loans, often foregoing upgrading cars, buying houses, etc.? At this point, I paid down $38,000 and only have $2,000 left to pay. Will the government simply forget these students that have already paid off their loans or are nearly done? Well, what they're telling me is the government actually, in a very fair way, this is going to take some time, but they're actually going to very fairly go back through a lot of student loan records. So students that have paid on, let's say, federally insured loans or federal student loans, and even private loans, but they're going to go through and make amends. So the first tranche they're telling me will be for people that have, let's say, a lot of loans on the books or a lot of debt on the books. And I see them forgiving something like 40% or 50% of student loans. And then I see them going back, working back through several years backwards to see which loans have been paid down. So it's almost as if when these payments come back, it's almost as if this person asked the question, you're almost like in a savings program because some of that money is going to come back to you. So I do see that. It's going to take some time. I will tell you that this overall process has already been started by the federal government, but it's going to take another 1 to 2 years here for a lot of this to transact. So I do see a good outcome there. Okay, question 27. I know that often people describe a cold chill when they get validation that something is correct, or they say or connect the dots that shows their aligned path or their spirit is near. I get a warm sensation wash over me and a vibration in my core. Is this what you were talking about when people mention cold chill? Well, yes, when you get cold chills, especially when you're dealing with anything in life, many times that is one of your birth angels or one of your spiritual working guides, sometimes even a family member moving very close to you as a confirmation. So a good example is you might say something out loud like, I really think this is the case, or I believe this, and you get an immediate cold chill. That's a confirmation from your team, from the universe. Now, this person also mentioned that they may get a warm feeling. I find, based on my experience, that when you get an additional warm feeling to your core, that's also some energy realignment that's going on with you. So it's something that they're helping you with in terms of energy realignment. So it's something more than just a confirmation. 26. Do ETs fall in love and have families and children? Yes, they absolutely do. They have love. They experience love and compassion and feelings. And there are even some hybrid aliens or ETs out there with a lot of human qualities. So yes, they do. Absolutely. Okay, 25. Hi, Sterling. I was told that I was Alexander the Great in a past life. Oddly enough, a friend of mine told me that a different reader told him he was also Alexander the Great in a past life. I was at a dinner party and the topic of past lives came up, and someone who I did not know declared he was also Alexander the Great. How is that possible? Are we all part of Alexander the Great, or can someone reincarnate in multiple people? No, I mean, what I'm being told is that none of you were Alexander the Great, but you lived around that time period, which is like an ancient Greek time period, 400 to 300 BC. So you weren't all Alexander the Great, nor can one spirit reincarnate in several people like that. So sorry to burst the bubble, but you were just like none of you were Alexander the Great. 24. Do ETs have a religion? No, not necessarily. They all believe in the one force. They're much more unified in their approach to the universe. But what's interesting, I'm reminded here of the fact, if you look at Star Wars, one of the big sayings is always, may the force be with you. And so really, in a tongue-in-cheek way, George Lucas was a nod to the one force. So no, aliens, ETs, extraterrestrials, not really a big on religion, but big on understanding alignment to the one force. 23. Recently, a much loved member of my small community passed away. I read the obituary and tributes and wished I had known her, but I did not. Today, at my local grocery store, there was an altar set up in her honor with flowers, candles, pictures, messages, and prayers. I went over to check it out, but within seconds before I could even look at or read anything, I was smacked by a powerful wave of emotion so strong I had to leave. I sat in my car outside and sobbed. What happened? Was she there? Yes, she was absolutely present. You felt her strong energy, and you actually felt what they're telling me was a rush of love. And so that emotion you felt was a rush of love and her compassion and respect for you honoring her. So she must have been a very strong spiritual energy when she was here and passing around some love, and you really felt that. 22 in our countdown. Hi, Sterling. I've heard from other sources that there could be a big event, possibly this summer, which will involve raising the planetary vibrations. It would mean many people would be knocked unconscious, while ETs would intercede to help people with making the transition to a higher vibration reality, or even relocate to different planets that better match the vibrations. Do you see this coming at all? No. No massive event like that knocks people unconscious, or that ETs step in to help people move on to higher vibrations or other planets. Do not see that at all. So not sure where the information came from, but doesn't resonate with my team whatsoever. 21. Recently, I had my DNA done with Ancestry, I guess .com, because I'm from the Caribbean. The results confirmed that I'm a real mix with more than a dozen ethnicities with different percentages of races. Does this mean that those are traces of my past lives throughout generations? Well, no, not necessarily your lives, but it actually does point to the fact of all the other generations before you and their ethnic orientations, if you will, where they've come from. So remember, in the end, most everybody's a star seed and came from a star system, one of the star systems. But what you're seeing there is not your past life so much as an alignment with your ancestry. 21. I'm really confused about something. Since you and other psychics have said there is no hell, I was told a few months ago by a famous psychic that a family member of mine would have to spend some time in purgatory for the way I was treated or actions along with other things. If there is no hell, is this where you have your life review, where you experience the things you did to others, or is it a lower dimension of heaven that feels like hell? Well, you're right. There is no hell. So we all pass over to a very similar location, destination, the other dimension. Now, when you go through a life review for some can be very painful, because during that life review, you're experiencing all the feelings, emotions, lessons you conveyed to other people when you were here. So you're right, there is no hell, but sometimes a life review can be very painful depending on what you did here. And then it's all instructional in nature. So it's meant to teach you lessons and get you to kind of move on. So you're right, there is no hell. So I confirm that. So nothing to be afraid of. 19. Hello, Sterling. When my mother was a little girl, she fell ill to the Hong Kong flu. She remembers feeling so sick and being visited by what she describes as small gray aliens around her bed. She thought she was hallucinating during this event. However, she was always had a strong connection to everything about aliens her whole life. Was this a true encounter? And if so, what was the purpose? So this was a true encounter, and the purpose was they actually were down to help your mother. So it looks to me like your mother's life may have been in some sort of danger, and they were down to help your mother. And so this was a true encounter for her. Yes, absolutely. 18. Do you think sleepwalking is a kind of out-of-body experience? No. Sleepwalking occurs in a different area of the brain, and does not involve a separation of soul or spirit from the body. So they just sleepwalk. Yeah, it's not an out-of-body experience, but it occurs in a different portion of the brain. 17. Many years ago, I had an odd encounter at a bar. My boyfriend at the time had left to go to the bathroom, and I was sitting alone next to a scruffy-looking man who asked me if I wanted a drink. I said, no, but thanks for the kindness. He responded, I'm not being kind. I'm trying to manipulate you. At which time a big black cloud came toward me, signaling out of him. The darkness bounced off of me like I had some sort of white light around me. Can you explain more about this? It was super unnerving at the time. Yes, this was your angels and guides swooping in to protect you. And in fact, they're just telling me here that your angels and guides even somehow manipulated him into telling you the truth about what his intentions were. So you had a lot of help there. That was definitely divinely guided, divine intervention to protect you from any harm. 16, since animals are part of the angelic realm, are they more spiritually evolved than we are? And will they always be more evolved? Yes, and we think we talked about this earlier on the show here, but they're from the angelic realm. They come down with unconditional love to teach us lessons. So yes, in some respects, they're more highly evolved in that way. So, animals are part of the angelic realm, and they're a little more highly evolved due to the unconditional love aspect. 15, will Zelensky ultimately keep the seaports, or will there'll be a split with Russia? Well, it looks to me like what they're showing me here is that in the east, like the Sea of Azov, that's going to somehow come under some sort of control of Russia. There'll be a shared responsibility. So some of the regions that were being fought over just before the whole Russian incursion here are still going to be under the same kind of difficulty. So it looks like in the east and around that Sea of Azov, there's going to be some difficulty, and Russia's going to maintain some sort of control there. So I think that was the question. Yeah, I guess, will they keep all the seaports? Looks like just that one is going to be in contention. Okay, 14 in our countdown. Hi, Sterling. What will be the consequences of Putin being taken down from power or other more or less authoritarian regimes in the world? Will have a ripple effect that means more democracy in countries with connections to Russia like Belarus, Syria, and Venezuela, and could eventually mean an end to the violations of democratic rights in the EU and countries like Poland and Hungary. Well, to put it simply, it's going to take years here for a lot of more nations to join NATO, but this is all part of a big push and a big change in the world. So yes, whatever happens to Putin here very shortly, this will certainly be a trigger and will help move the world's nations and countries more towards democratic rule of law. And so all this is a trigger point, if you will. It's a tipping point. And we will see a lot of movement. Many of these countries that we're talking about here moving more towards democracy and joining NATO. That's very true. But it's going to take a number of years here. 13, the Antarctic ice shelf that has fallen into the ocean for sure has collected bacteria and spores, other things we have not been exposed to for hundreds of years or thousands of years. Are we likely to experience some new illnesses and infections from the melt off from this ice shelf? Yes, we will see advanced bacterias and elements that science has not dealt with. However, they're telling me with much of the level of technology we have now, including things like scanning electron microscopes and other types of diagnostic equipment, we're going to be able to isolate these unique bacteria, and we're going to have the technology very quickly to adapt to it, and to fight it. So yes, there'll be things we haven't seen hundreds of years or thousands of years, but we'll be able to respond to it very quickly. 12, when I was in my mid-teens, I used to see a short man wearing a trench coat and a large brimmed fedora. His face was obscured, but I could tell he had a large nose. I would see him during the daytime, and he was always standing in a corner. He didn't scare me. I thought I was the only one to see him. Recently, I've heard tales that he has been seen by many and is known as the Hatman. Who is he? So there's many Hatmen. It's not just one. And Hatmen, being told here, they're actually there to help. They provide a warning to something going on. So they're looking at after your safety and maybe foretelling some major accident. Could be an airline accident or some other major kind of accident, but they're really warning. It's a helpful warning, is what they're telling me. And there are many Hatmen, around the globe, around the universe. 11. Why are there so many different NDE experiences or near-death experiences? Seems like one crosses over to a gate, another to a huge hall, another to a mountain region, etc. Do we not transcend the same way and go to the same place? Well, we all end up in the same place. But what I'm being told here is that many times your guides or your birth angels will try and make things very comfortable for you and show you images and things that look very comfortable to you and familiar. So that's why some of the crossovers look a little different, but you all end up in heaven and all end up going through some of the same life reviews, but that's why some of them look different. Now, I'm just reminded to tell everybody, when you look at near-death experiences, as opposed to an actual crossing, I think this person did bring up NDEs. Many times NDEs are momentary experiences. So somebody may be dead on an operating table for 5 minutes or 20 minutes and then come back. And those experiences may in fact be where they move out of their body and move into the hallway of a hospital or float up to the roof of a hospital and see a tennis shoe on the roof of a hospital they could have never seen. And when they come back again later on, they can describe what they saw, people in the hallway. So I guess there's different levels of NDE as well as different experiences when you actually make the crossing. And they're just being told here that your birth angels and guardian angels try to give you a familiar experience to make it comfortable when you're eventually making the crossing. So hopefully that's helpful. 10. My question is, do you see French President Emmanuel Macron winning the current French election? It does appear to me that he wins the next French election. It looks like he has two strong opponents on the other side of the aisle, if you will, but it looks like for some reason these other opponents stumble and fall. So something comes out in the press or the news, but it does look like Emmanuel Macron does win re-election. Now it looks to me like they're reminding me something having to do with his handling of the Russian and Ukraine situation. So this is ongoing for all world leaders, but looks like he does something there now or eventually that helps him get back in, reelected. 9. I've had 2 times in my life where I died but was sent back. Throughout my whole life, I felt like I was supposed to do something really important, but I haven't yet. How do you find out what you were supposed to do in your life? Did I miss the boat? No. And this is going to be a general answer for everybody. You never really miss the boat. So when you look at your life path, sometimes people feel like they're not on it. You never leave your life path. You do zigzag through it. But the best way to understand if you're on your life path is I always say, first off, learn how to talk directly with your guides and angels. Ask for guidance. Some people say pray, and that's good too. You can talk real time with your guides and angels. Then once you ask a question about your life path and purpose. And if you're doing what you need to, then look for signs from the universe. And they can appear in all different kinds of ways. They can appear things people say to you randomly. They can be in billboards you see when you're driving. They could be in thoughts you get. But ask for guidance and pray. And then try to stay in love and a spirit of helping others. And a lot of this will help ensure you're on your life path. So it's a broader discussion, but those are the elements. And whoever asked this question, you haven't missed the boat. You're on your life path. We're all in a school. But I would say that when you get aligned more easily with your life path and talk directly with your guides and angels, allows you to accelerate through your life path much faster, and your scale of achievement is much bigger. So we'll talk more about that in future shows. 8, I've had night walkers for 30 years, every shape and character you can imagine. I have never received any important messages from them. I am always frightened by them. A strong light left on through the night has always been my best remedy. Any idea what they might be? So if you're referencing actual spirits, and I think you are, this person asked the question, these are spirits that have returned to complete. They need to complete something, and that's why they're around that location or that area. So they're not harmful. They're not necessarily there for you, but they're there to complete something in that area or that region. And once they complete it, they move on. That's what a lot of these night walkers can be sometimes. Number 7, Chinese Boeing crashes. Oh, the Chinese Boeing crashed into a mountain with 132 on board. What happened, Sterling? Yes, I remember this. Well, my team is telling me that this has to do with navigation issues and autopilot issues. So this does not look like human error, but looks like a navigation system and an autopilot error. And this is something that my guys are reminding me that at the beginning of the year, my team was telling me about a major airline crash. And I really felt it was going to happen here in the US. It appears this is the one they were referencing. But the interesting thing about it, it's unfortunate for all the souls, that perished. It's a terrible catastrophe here, but it looks like it's going to lead to new FAA guidelines for testing and validation. Looks like the FAA is going to remove a lot of testing out of the hands of manufacturers. So this is a big movement here. It's a big change. But in answer to the initial question here, it looks like the navigation and autopilot automation system problem that caused the crash. So you're very unfortunate, but that's what they're telling me. 6, for years now, often when I'm falling asleep, I see multiple random faces very clearly. They are unknown to me, but their expressions seem to be trying to communicate something. Who are they? What they're telling me, these appear to be ancestors of yours. So simply ask what message they're trying to convey. And if you find it annoying, ask your ancestors in a loving way to move along and to not bother you unless there's something they can tell you clearly. But these appear to be ancestors of yours, and not necessarily people you knew, but going back many generations. 5, as a child, I remember being afraid of the hallway in my home, but only at night. One night, I remember a bright light coming into my living room window, and looking to my left, I saw what seemed to be dozens of small alien creatures running up the stairs. These aliens appeared similar to the description of the Greys. I remember thinking about how I dreaded their coming and how this was the reason I was afraid of the dark. I lost time, and the only thing that triggered this memory was that I began to draw pictures of alien faces while in class. I wonder if you can tell me which aliens were these, why were they visiting me, and whether they visited me often. So I'm getting these were Greys, and there were some tall whites there, which you may have seen, which we refer to as the Nordic ETs, Nordic aliens. And they were there. So they weren't there, they didn't return, but they were there as something having to do with your family, your ancestors. So this was a momentary visit, and they didn't return frequently and did not return. You didn't get abducted, but you did witness it. And I'm not sure, this person said, I think as a child. Remember, as a child, when we're children, certainly prior to the ages of 5 or 6, we're all born psychic mediums and heightened sense of perception and the spiritual realm. And that's why a lot of times children can see even aliens and ETs. So that's what this is all about, but nothing to worry about. And you certainly remembered it made an impact on you. Okay, 4 in our countdown. I was wondering if you could tell us the importance of emotion in human evolution. Does it play a part in peace, forgiveness, and worldwide compassion? Yes. So emotion is really, the function of emotion is the interconnection between the human form and your spiritual being. So what this does is it rings the bell, so to speak, into allowing you and making you acknowledge important events, important messages, important things that you need to learn from. So if you think about major emotions like marriage, childbirth, first love, all these things. That emotion makes the interconnection between your human physical self and your spiritual being that allows you to kind of acknowledge and recognize kind of the lessons you're going through. So it makes an impact. So that's what it's all about. So pay attention to those emotions, because there's always a lesson there. Number 3 in the countdown. When I was a child, I used to stand in front of the bathroom mirror and stare intently at myself. Pretty soon I would start to feel I was leaving my body, and my image in the mirror would start to duplicate until I could see a receding hall of mirrors stretching in front of me and behind me to infinity. I was able to pull in and out of this experience by eventually I stopped doing it because it scared me. Could your guides comment on what was really happening to me? Do we all have this ability? Yeah, so you're referring to what's called the infinity mirror effect. So there's a practical explanation. But what they're telling me to tell you is that what happens is that you kind of get into a trance when you see this infinity mirror effect. It's not magical, but it kind of decouples your logical mind from your intellect and your spiritual mind, and it kind of allows you to kind of drift into more of that spiritual space. So it's a physical optical effect, infinity mirror effect, that allows you to decouple your logical mind. So that's what's going on there. And yes, a lot of people can do it. A lot of people find a good way to decouple their logical mind is to stare into a mirror. I see that a lot of times. People will talk about that, but so nothing crazy going on there, but simple principle. Number 2 in our countdown. Do you see anything coming up this week? I do. More reports of Putin's health problems around cancer. And again, my guides had said before, weeks or even months ago now, that it was colon cancer he's wrestling with. A lot of after effects here going on with cancer and Putin. I do see an incursion into Poland. I do see a NATO response. Looks like it's all going to be handled fairly well. So it's not going to be like a trigger any kind of a nuclear event, but I do see an incursion to Poland, something from Russia, and then a response. I see more incursion from the Ukraine army into Russia. Like they blew up the oil facility here. We saw the fuel storage facility. Here's something reminding me there's going to be some more news here on student loans, which is kind of a separate topic. So some student loan forgiveness information coming up. I see more movement around the confirmation process going forward here with a new Supreme Court justice, with Judge Jackson. Okay. All right. And, I mean, essentially, I think those are the major things coming up here. And they're just reminding me here, several more witnesses deciding to come forward here in 45's orbit. There's immediate family willing to testify. So interesting. Few other witnesses willing to come through willingly without being subpoenaed. Interesting. Okay, it's coming up. And number 1 in our countdown, do you have anything your guides want to share? Yes. Take care of yourself and those around you, because that will energetically help you to help others. And then that ripple effect moves out and helps the well-being of many, many people. So remember, it all starts with us. Take care of yourself and take care of those closest around you. And that will help kind of move a lot of the good and loving energy out to the world. So on that note, thanks for joining us. As always, if you need to reach me for a session, people always ask, very easy. Go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the book a session tab, very easy. The calendar is always up to date by my team. And I'll be doing a show with Linda G, the Comanche Psychic, next Sunday, not this Sunday. And as always, going to send you a lot of goodwill and tremendous love to you and your families. Take care. Have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday. All the best.